Hi there, and welcome to another interview. Today, I've got the wonderful Coach Bronson with me, and it's going to be a slightly different conversation because we've got a couple of things I want to talk about. But the first thing is, Coach Bronson, welcome to the show. Could you just give people a little introduction to you and why you ended up eating a different way to most people?
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach Steven. I love other coaches. I love talking with other coaches. It's fun. I feel like it's a different conversation when I'm talking with people who are kind of doing the same stuff I'm doing, as opposed to just people who do interviews all the time or scientists and researchers. That it's a whole different conversation. Um, yeah. So my introduction and the reason I got started, I follow a carnivore diet. Was twofold. Well, it started out as one thing. It was an experiment to see if putting out vegetables and plant matter would fix my urgent bowels. So I had years and years and years of anxiety and stress that centered really literally around when and where bathrooms were, and if I was in a situation where I was going to poop my pants. It's just a horrible way to live. If anybody's ever dealt with that, I actually saw TikTok video this morning where someone was recording her friend who has IBS eating at a restaurant and counting down how quickly after she ate, they were walking through the city, how fast they had to find a bathroom. It was like within 6 minutes of her finishing her meal, they're running down the street, stopping in hotels, asking if they had bathrooms in the like. That was my life, multiple times a day, every day for years and years. And I didn't know that it could be fixed. But it was like, let's try let's try all the different things. And, someone recommended, hey, do an elimination diet, cut out everything but meat. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I watched some podcasts. I watched Joe Rogan. I watched Dr. Baker on Joe Rogan the first time. And so I figured I'd give it a shot. Well, what's the worst that could happen, right? I did that within 90 days. I realized, hey, wait a second, all these things that I'm preparing for, these situations of potential accidents, weren't happening. I didn't have to do these things. And I slowly started cutting back on, packing toilet paper in every bag that I had when I went somewhere, putting toilet paper or paper towels in my car, going to the bathroom 8 times a day, just in case I had to go before I got into a car or after I got to a location, like all of these different things. I started realizing like, hey, I could live my life, and then from there, the benefits that I saw outside of that, stuff that we hear commonly, right? I used to get acne, zits, pimples pretty bad on my face and my back. Those just went away. I think if I get a zit now, it's like, whoa, where did that come from? What's going on? I don't have to deal with that. Body fat, composition, all of those things improved. And even at the time when I started doing carnivore, I owned a gym. I was a CrossFit gym owner. I've been doing CrossFit for 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. And I had to hit what I work with a lot of people where they start doing something, they see progress, and then they stop, they stall, they get stuck, and then they start going backwards. So my entire journey of health and fitness, improving my quality of life, my body confidence, all those things, started with fitness. I really started on the CrossFit side, got super in shape to do a bunch of things physically. I lost about almost 70 pounds. And then a few years into it, I started putting on pounds again. I had gained 20, 30, 40 pounds back. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was because I hadn't fixed the nutrition side of things. So adding carnivore in brought all that back full circle. I started losing fat again. I started feeling better, having more energy. Some of the reasons why I stayed, like I said, the health issues improved. I wasn't as depressed. I felt better about myself. But from a performance perspective, on the physical side of things, I had chronic injuries. I was working out. I tried to work out, right? And I'm in my mid 40s now. I was trying to work out. I was used to working out 4 or 5 days a week. I'd gotten to a point where the inflammation in my body was so bad, the injuries I had were so bad, I couldn't work out 3 days a week. If I could get 3 days a week of exercise in, I was doing good. That was a good week. Most times it was 2 days a week with a few days in between. And I was trying to just get in what I could get in because I was hurt. I was sore. I had torn meniscus in my knee, torn labrums in my shoulders, pulled groins, pulled calves, like everything was just falling apart. And I'm just getting old. That just must be what's happening. Right. That was the thought process. And that's what I hear from my clients all the time. I literally was one of those people that had to wake up in the morning and warm up for 10 minutes before I could start my day. And, now it's been almost 6 years. In May of this year, it'll be 6 years I've been carnivore. I haven't had to deal with any of that. I work out 5 to 6 days a week. I have a blast with my exercise. I have a blast working out. I feel fantastic. I haven't had to deal with an injury, a workout related injury in just about 5 years. It took, again, 3 to 6 months for most of the injuries I had to go away and for me to not be chronic issues anymore. And once they were gone, they were gone. I haven't had to deal with it ever since. I haven't had a pulled calf. I haven't had a pulled groin. My torn meniscus in my knee doesn't bother me. I never got it fixed. Doesn't bother me. My torn labrums in both of my shoulders, haven't got it fixed. Doesn't bother me. Right? I can do all of the things that I was doing before, minus some very specific and unnecessary movements, right? I don't need to do overhead squats. I don't need to do barbell snatches. Those aren't functional movements. From other than those two specific movements, there's nothing I can't do. And I attribute all of that to the combination of having a good physical foundation and then adding the appropriate nutrition lifestyle that's working best for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the sort of cheeky part of me has already thought about the thumbnail, and because you talk about rushing to the toilet, I was thinking of calling it spot zits and having the, but it's a word I don't like to use. But anyway, right. And I will say this, Bronson, actually, watching you there, I interviewed you about a year and a half ago, and I think you look better now than then. And I feel there's been a lot of this sort of reverse aging. I'm sort of reluctant to use that phrase, but I'm 60. I'm 60 in May, and I feel that I don't feel like I'm aging. So anyway, that's great.
I'll be 52 in May. So
yeah, you see, I think you look great. Might be your better half keeping you young as well. So anyway,
doesn't hurt. I'll tell you that.
I understand you're writing a book. Could you just tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, this book I've been working on for a little over a year, which I didn't even realize. I was looking back at some old documents and things. It was like I started this like in late 2022, actually. And it really stems from something that I've been seeing, particularly in the carnivore space, in the keto space in general, but I think it branches out beyond that. And it's an issue that I see in everywhere in health and fitness. And that is people getting stuck because they're trying to follow protocols that don't apply to them. Everybody's stuck in, I'm keto, I'm carnivore, I'm a CrossFitter, I'm a power lifter, I'm a runner, I'm a walker, I'm all these things. And we think everything's so black and white and so boxed in that when that's not working for you anymore, you don't know what else to do. You're stuck, you're stalled, this isn't working. But at the same time, you don't want to admit that's not working because you've identified with that thing. So now there's something wrong with you. It's not what you're doing. Now it's me. Something's wrong with me. So then they start taking the blame for there not being progress because they must be doing something, or something's wrong with their body, or they're just different than everybody else. No, you're just not doing the thing that's working for you because you've stuck yourself in a box and you can't get out of it. That's what this is. That's what this book is about. So I initially I was going to title the book Principles Over Protocols. That was initially the direction that I was going because that's the core of the message. It is we don't need to understand how a clock works in order to tell time. And a lot of people are spending a lot of time and effort in trying to understand the mechanics of gear function, gear ratios, spring mechanics, and all these different things about how a clock tells time and stays on time throughout eternity, instead of just realizing, hey, as long as I can tell the time, I don't care if it's a digital clock, if it's a sundial, if I can tell what time it is during the day, that's all that matters. And that's the core of the message. It's morphed a little bit from that. And basically now what I want people to understand is the end result is achieved by following principles, but the end result is also not usually what people start the process with. A lot of people start with, I want to lose weight. A lot of people start with, I have this health issue I need to get rid of. I see people all the time in insulin resistant groups. Hey, I just got diagnosed with insulin resistance. How do I fix it? There's all these, very specific individual things. The end thing that works for everybody is we want to be confident in our body. We want to be able to say two things. We want to be able to say, I feel good about how I look. We want to be able to say, I don't have to reject the possibility of physical activity. I don't have to be worried or anxious about what my body can do or how my body is functioning. I don't want to have to struggle with health issues on a consistent daily basis. There's a lot of things that go into body confidence, and I want people to understand that being confident in your body is not just feeling good about how you look. And that's really the core of it. And then the principles over concepts aspect is how I carry out in the book. How do you reach body confidence? We reach body confidence by following there's a few steps, and we can talk about those. I have 5 core concepts that go into how you determine what's best for you to be the most confident in your body that you can be. But that's essentially what this next book is going to be about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get into the 5 concepts, but one thing you said there about the clock, I really like that clock analogy, is do you need to know all that stuff if you need to know the time? And it's just a story I'm going to relate to you because although it seems a bit off kilter, it gets the point across for me. I used to many years ago help out at a school for underprivileged children. It was called the Life Centre. It was the centre where all these children would go, and they were either going to be excluded or given up on, basically. So it was quite a hard task, and I didn't mind giving up my time. And there was a boy there that was failing in his maths. This boy could do maths like that in his head. And he was literally a genius, but he was not getting the grades because he couldn't write down the steps he took to get to the answer.
Yeah.
How frustrating, right?
Yeah.
Frustrating. So yeah, I totally get that. I was going to talk about something else, but you've already got my interest, so this book's going to be good. So do you want to just expand on those 5 concepts?
Yeah, sure. So the idea of achieving body confidence by following principles is I put it in 5 steps, and there's a lot of stuff. This book is going to be very hierarchical. So there's levels to these concepts and principles, and they all build off each other. The 5 foundational concepts that we need to understand. If you can answer, and we'll talk about each one and then pose it as a question. If you can answer yes to every one of these, then you know the choice you're making is probably going to move you forward, regardless of the label that you want to give it. Okay, and that's the key. The labels are not helping anybody. Okay, what actually works is what's helping you. Okay, and being able to play around with finding out what that is the goal. So the first thing we need to understand is individual goals are the most important thing. Okay, your goals, and I've said this before, is the only rule that matters is the results that you achieve. That's it. That's the only thing that you can follow as far as what's right or wrong or good or best or whatever. I get questions all the time, people asking me, what's the best way to do this? I'm like, I don't know. Is it working for you? If it's not working for you, then it's probably not the best thing you should be doing. But that thing may be the best thing for Bob on this side to be doing, because where he's at right now, that's the most applicable thing for him. So the best thing is what's working. That's the first thing. Second thing is we need to make sure that we're considering the whole picture. When we see people talking about specific protocol, often they're addressing a specific issue that may not be an issue you need to deal with. Or it may be something you need to deal with, but there may be something else in your life that's an easier ask or an easier thing to implement that's going to give you a bigger result. So understanding what are all of the things going on in your life. I have a lot of people who come to me and they say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And it's like, okay, great. How are you going to do that? Look at the big picture in your life. How is this going to affect your family? How is this going to affect your schedule? Is it going to add or remove stress from your life? In many cases, if you were trying to do something and it's making you stressed out trying to do it, it's probably not a good thing for you to do. The whole idea is to remove stress and help you manage stress, not increase your stress. So looking at the big picture of all the aspects, and that goes from a lifestyle, a schedule, a stress management, medical requirements, and medical impact. There's a whole bunch of things that go into looking into the whole picture. The third thing is the core of the message, and that is follow concepts, not rules. Okay, the concepts, and we just talked about this, why things are working is more important than how they work. Okay, and you can play distinctions on either side of that, but basically what I'm saying is I don't need to understand the biological impact of reducing processed food and seed oils as much as I need to know if I do that, I'm going to be healthier. That's the end result that we need to be focusing on. And as much as I love all the scientists and the researchers out there that are putting out great content and helping us understand how these things are working, okay, understanding how things work is great. It provides information to allow us to make decisions, but it is one piece of a big puzzle, right? Dr. Bickman coming on and telling everybody that brown fat is essential and we all need to optimize brown fat. Fantastic. Okay. If you're making your decisions about your lifestyle choices based on how much brown fat you're increasing in your body, that's probably too specific for you to be worried about, and you're going to get stuck and you're going to go off course, right? You should know that, hey, you know what? I bet you if I eat more red meat and build more muscle and increase my activity throughout the day, that's probably not going to give me a bunch of other benefits. And I bet you my brown fat's probably going to increase as well, right? So look, bringing things up a level is always going to be more beneficial than trying to get stuck in specific guidelines and rules. And then the fourth thing is if it's not sustainable, it's not sustainable, right? Making big sweeping changes, trying to do all these things right up front. Okay. The question should be, what am I ready, willing, and able to do? What is the smallest thing that I can do that's outside my comfort zone? Often we talk about the comfort zone a lot. You got to get outside your comfort zone. Okay, great. So people go, oh, I'm going to get outside my comfort zone. Let me get a running start and see how far I can jump across that line. And that's not how this works, guys. Any step, it can be an inch over the line, it can be a foot over the line. Any step outside your comfort zone is going to increase the size of your comfort zone. So if you want to have more things that you're capable of doing, it doesn't have to be a large leap. Just step over the line, find something that's realistic, set the expectation for how you're going to do that, and then maintain it over time. The bigger the change, the harder it is to sustain it. Okay. And then the last core concept is measure and evaluate. And I talk about this all the time. If you're not tracking, you're not trying. Okay. You can make changes without tracking. The problem with that is you have no idea if those changes are really doing what you want them to do, what those changes actually were, and what you need to do to continue the progress from those changes. Okay. Data is key when you're trying to make adjustments. That doesn't mean tracking is forever. That doesn't mean that tracking has to be complicated. I have clients who I'm working with where their tracking is just taking pictures of their food whenever they eat. That's all that's all they need. If that's all they're capable of doing, if that's all they have the time for, or the bandwidth mentally to do it, then that's great. That's better than nothing. At least they can go back and say, okay, what did I eat this week? Let me look at my picture album, and identify the things I maybe shouldn't have or should have eaten more of, whatever that may be. I have clients like myself where I track, when I'm tracking, I'm not tracking right now, as an example. When I am tracking, I track everything that goes into my mouth. And I know every single thing about everything that goes into my mouth when I'm looking to make a change. When I'm maintaining, and I'm happy where I'm at, I don't have any specific goals that I'm working for. I'm just trying to live my life and stay where I'm at. I don't track. But whenever I want to make a change, whenever there's something that I want to say, hey, this is something I want to do differently, instantly I start tracking. Because you cannot get where you're going if you don't know where you're going. You got to get there, right? So those are the 5 things. Prioritize individual goals, get the whole picture, follow concepts, make solutions sustainable, and measure and evaluate everything.
Yeah, and I think you've written the thumbnail for me, 5 rules for life. I think that's really
Hey,
good.
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I'd like to give you a little bit of feedback on that because I remember the last interview we had, your first one about your goal. You liked the phrase, the why that makes you cry. I remember you thinking that was good. And I still use that. I think that's really good. But one that I think we'll both get as coaches, and, I also do the personal training. People often ask me when you send about the whole picture and the schedule, people always ask me, what's the science? What's the best time to work out? And I always answer when you can work out, because that's it. It's no good reading that 6 o'clock in the morning is the best time fasted if you get up at 7. It's just, you're just changing your life too much. So I really like that. And I want to add something about the concepts, the point 3. Because again, you see, there's so many parallels, which is why I think you might be hitting on a really good 5 rules for life, because I could use those 5. And this one is about bloods. People come about the bloods. They're worried about this, that, and the other, about the numbers. And I actually say that. Do you know what's more important than the numbers? The person. And I can give you a really good example. Low folate on this way of eating, possibly something that comes up. Now, low is sort of a pejorative term. If you're not having any clinical presentation at low folate, does it matter? So that's the thing.
Yep.
Sustainable, I always use that for people. I say, look at The Biggest Loser. That's insane amounts of cardio. That's not. Yeah, so do I. It's not sustainable. And the tracking, maybe you've never thought of this before. I think you probably have. But I always say to people that say they're not tracking, I say, so you never look in the mirror, okay? You don't notice the hole in your belt.
I love it.
For me, if I'm working out and this is nice and tight on my shoulders, normal biceps, that's good. If it was tight around my belly, I'm tracking, So I think people think tracking is getting out your calipers or your scales, and all that's fine too. But, you track these most simple ways, I think. That was brilliant, and I can't wait for this book to come out. I know you don't know exactly when it's out, but when can people sort of think it will be available?
Yeah, I'm hoping for fall, if not sooner. Again, like we were talking before we actually started recording, I'm impatient when it comes to this stuff. I am very much a get things off my to-do list as quickly as possible kind of person. So I'm ready to go now. We just submitted it to final editing. We're going to start working on layout, design, all that kind of stuff. And that's probably going to take a few months. And then it's promotion. So we've got, I'm being recommended to take 8 to 12 months to promote the book. I'm probably, because I'm impatient, cut that down to 4 to 6 months. So if all goes well, fall at the latest, maybe holiday season.
Cool. I'm gonna get it as soon as it's out. So that would be great. I'm going to go a bit more broad now. So I'm going to ask you a couple of things about frequency of eating. Now, we've just said all of those things there. Do you have a way for you that works, like 2 meals a day, for instance? And is there a reason why that you've landed on that? Which, to me, I'm not saying let's exclude 1 meal a day or 3 meals a day and snacks. Sure. I'm just asking about you personally.
Yeah. So for me, depending on what I'm doing, most of the time when I'm in maintenance, it's usually 2 to 3 meals a day. Kind of depends on schedule, my hunger, things like that. Most of the time, it's 2 meals a day. If I'm going through a phase where I just got out of actually, I was trying to put on a little mass, and I started doing 3 meals a day just to try to get a little extra macros in. But yeah, for me, just schedule wise, it just feels natural. I eat my first meal of the day between 9:30 and 11:30, somewhere in there. And then my second meal of the day is either, if I'm doing 3 meals a day, my second meal of the day would be around 2 o'clock. I go to the gym usually between 3 and 4, 3 and 5. When I get home, then I would have another meal, probably no later than 7. I don't like eating after 7 o'clock. I like to get at least 2 or 3 hours of no food intake before I go to bed. So that would be three if I do 3 times a day. If I do 2 times a day, then I wouldn't do the 2 o'clock one. I would just eat in that 9:30 to 11 window. And then after I get back from the gym, 5 to 7, somewhere there would be my second meal.
And do you have a rough idea of how much protein you're ingesting in a day?
I probably average around 200. On a low day, it's about 185. On a high day, it's about 225.
Right, cool. That's great. What about hydration? Do you just drink water, or do you have a?
I don't drink any water. Doesn't have electrolytes in it.
Cool.
That's my personal. Yeah, that's my personal preference. I know some people do. So I know there's a debate on you don't need to do it. Blah blah blah. I feel better the more I get. Personally,
what do you use then?
I use either Element or Salty. Are you familiar with Salty, the new brand that Keto Chow just came out with?
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Their formulation, I like it because it has, I think it's like 130 milligrams of magnesium per serving. So it's got the most magnesium than any other electrolyte, and it removes. I don't need to. I usually supplement magnesium before I go to bed at night. But when I'm doing Salty, I get enough in throughout the day that I don't need to supplement before I go to bed. And my sleep has been just as good without the additional supplementation now that I'm taking that. So I really like that.
Do they have sweeteners in?
Yeah, I think the monk fruit and stevia.
Right. And that doesn't...
Similar to Element. They also have unflavored and unsweetened options too.
Cool. That's really interesting, actually. I had a question the other day that someone was worried about their minerals, and they didn't want to do 1 meal a day because they felt that they were getting enough from food. So going back to your simplicity, I just said, well, then eat 2 meals a day. It is intuitive. Yep. But I loved your answer. And I think the reason I push people to answer is because when people start out, they really are looking for a tick box. They're definitely looking for, I need to do this, I need to do that. And your book's going to address that. But also, I'm just saying this for everybody, that's watching. It is about being intuitive. That's actually what you're aiming for. You don't want to be thinking, I've got to eat 3 meals a day. I've got to eat 1 meal a day because such and such said. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. I mean, that really is the nub of it, isn't it? It's about what works for you, and it doesn't take long to work out what doesn't and what does, because you'll feel great if it works, and you'll feel not so great if it doesn't.
Well, and that's the key, right? How you feel and what's working for you is going to be different for everybody. I have a preference towards leaning towards a leaner body composition. Like I'm looking at myself right now, I'm running about 17% body fat right now. I feel when I look at myself, I feel like I'm fluffy and I don't like it. Right. I was just talking with Coach Nat the other day. I'm getting dressed and I'm like, I have a level of body dysmorphia where I look at myself. I know that I'm functionally fit. I have no health issues. 18% body fat is perfectly healthy. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But just from the aesthetic perspective, I told her, I was like jokingly, but kind of half serious, I really would prefer to be at an unhealthy level of body fat because I feel like I look better that way. Right? That's just my dysmorphia that I have about myself. So that level to me would push me to do things at a more specific or strict level of nutrition and fitness than somebody who is maybe coming from being at 40% body fat and they just want to get down to 25%. Right. The things that they have to do and the way they have to live their life is going to be very different based on what their goals and their perception of themselves and lifestyle is than mine. So we had very different perspectives, very different contexts, very different goals, very different things that are going to work for each of us.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the aesthetics, that is getting across to people that like a bodybuilder look or really ripped abs is not, yes, it looks great in a picture. It does look great in a photo, but is it as healthy as
it's unhealthy as crap?
No. Yeah. I mean, I watched the actor Wolverine. He was asked about his physique and how can he look so awesome. And literally in a 3-minute answer, he must have said, well, I'm not recommending this about 5 times. Yeah. It was just extreme. And yeah, he looked amazing, but it was wrecking his body. I want to go into something a little bit controversial that's maybe a little bit the zeitgeist now. So in a year's time, if this is still on YouTube, possibly people won't want to know about this. But there's been a big hoo-ha about eating Oreo cookies, bringing your LDL down compared to statins. Don't know if you have any views on that.
I don't have any news. I think it's hilarious. Just I mean, there was any, there was any further proof that anybody needed to just kind of put a nail in the coffin that about statins and the importance of LDL, in the negative, I think, what else are we going to say? Like, they're doing it to themselves at this point. These studies and these things kind of coming out. I mean, I just got my blood work back. I did some blood work last week. I just got my numbers back. I think my LDL was like 198 or something like that. It's in the red, like it's too high, all this kind of, my total cholesterol is too high, all these things. And I'm like, and I saw that, I was like, yes, like that's what I'm looking for. So I think it's amusing to see those types of things come out on the news.
Yeah, I think it surprised me how many people just don't want to know about it and want to be derogatory. And sort of poor old Nicholas Norwitz, who I've messaged a few times, about the comments. He doesn't even read the comments because they're not even listening to his videos. They're making an assumption because he actually says, I did it to be provocative and to get a conversation going. And it worked. And I think you're right about the nail in the coffin. There's a brilliant book called The Clot Thickens, by the way, Dr. Mike, which the nail in the coffin should have been that book maybe 15 years ago. It's absolutely fantastic. You touched on training there. You train in the afternoon after you've eaten, which is pretty interesting because a lot of coaches push training fasted. I actually like training fasted, but I'm not pushing it. It just works for me. So that's the theme of this whole interview, I think. It's what works for you. But I always get people saying, but I want to know his training regime. So how do you work it when you're sort of trying to maintain? Might be a better way to ask.
So I just maintain my schedule. My schedule is more important to me than anything else. When it comes to how do I make, decisions as far as when I'm going to do stuff and what kind of consistency I want to have. If I maintain my schedule, I maintain the habit, and that's more important. Consistency is more important than anything else. So as far as the train, I love you talk about, I don't care if I'm fasted or not. If it's time for me to work out and I haven't eaten, then I work out. If it's time for me to work out and I had 20 minutes ago, then I'm going to go work out. That's just how I am. The benefits, you can talk about the scientific benefits. And I think if you look at the science behind fasted training or not fasted training, you're going to see some improvements in body composition from a fat loss perspective. Training not fasted, you're going to see some improvements in a body composition perspective from lean mass gain. So what are you really trying to do? What's the goal? Again, if your goal is increasing the confidence you have in your body's ability to function, getting the work in consistently is going to do more for you than worrying about whether you're fasted or not. I love that's the goal. That's the goal. So why is anybody listening to this? Why are you wasting time worrying about what's the best way to train when it comes to when you eat? The best way to train is to train consistently. If you can do that, and whether you've eaten or not, if you want to optimize down the road, when you've shown consistent performance, that you're going to go to the gym on time, every time you say you're going to go, you're going to work hard, you're going to do the program 100%. When you've done that for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then you want to say, okay, my performance is peaked. How can I get better? Then we can talk about your nutrition and how it's impacting your exercise, right? But until you've showed that consistent effort over time that you're going to show up and have that habit of performance, then the rest of the conversation doesn't make sense.
Cool. You're speaking to a coach, right? But what about the average person who's watching this thinking, well, he's got this schedule. Well, what about those days when you just don't feel like it? What do you do?
That's a whole nother conversation. That's where having a coach and a community can help. So there are days where I don't feel like it, and sometimes I don't go. There are days where I don't feel like it, and I make myself go. There's a lot of things that go into that evaluation for me. Some of it is I've gotten really good at being self-aware and trying to understand the root reason, like what's going on in my head. Why don't I want to go today? Is it because I'm overstressed with something else and I've got something on my mind that I need to focus on and get off my checklist? Because I told you I'm very much a get things off my checklist. Sometimes I'll be working on something and not want to go to the gym because I've got something that I'm on fire about right now. There have been times writing the book where I'm in a chapter and I'm in a flow state and I'm like, screw the gym, I'm finishing this chapter. So the priority, what are you working on? Evaluating what's the root, what's the real reason why you don't want to go to the gym. If the real reason you don't want to go to the gym is because it's just it's not comfortable. It's raining outside. I don't want to go out in the rain, or it's too cold. I don't want to walk to the gym. Whatever, maybe that may be something where you need to evaluate what's your why. Why are you really doing this, and what are you trying to get out of it? At the same time, if you're like, hey, I had a really hard workout 2 days in a row and my body is feeling it, I think I need to take a day off, right? Remember, it's not black and white. That doesn't mean you don't have to go to the gym. That doesn't mean you give yourself grace. I hate that phrase. Okay. That means, how do I adjust what my action is, but maintain the habit, right? Maybe you go to the gym, but going to the gym doesn't mean you have to do another full workout. Maybe you go to the gym and you go sit in the sauna to kind of help recover a little bit. Maybe you go to the gym, you get a foam roller and just roll out and do some mobility and stretching, right? But you're maintaining the habit of showing up. It doesn't mean you have to do the workout. Maybe that workout that was scheduled for that day isn't what you do at all. You maybe do something completely different. So I think it comes down to being self-aware and asking yourself the question, why don't I want to go to the gym? And then being honest with yourself with the answer.
Yeah, being honest with yourself is a big deal, actually. And I think I pride myself in being really, really on board with most of the people that I coach. And I think now I've got over a decade of doing this, I can say with confidence to many people who think, I never want to exercise, I never feel like it. I always say, do you know what, around the corner, you might spontaneously suddenly want to exercise? Because I do see that. I definitely see people come to me and say, do you know what? Could you give me a workout plan? I actually want to start doing something. Yeah. So we're going to end with a question, because I know you're, obviously followed by a lot of people that are quite hardcore in the gym a lot, but there's also a lot of people that are just sitting on the couch and contemplating working out. Not only that, they're not even doing the diet yet. So what would you say to somebody that's sitting there thinking, yeah, maybe I should do this? What would you say to get them off the couch and actually maybe changing their nutrition and contemplating exercise?
You want to stay on the couch for the rest of your life?
That's it.
If that's where you want to be for the rest of your life, and have a blast, that's your choice. If there's any aspect in your life that you're not happy with, that you think fixing your nutrition or your fitness will remove from your life, the choice is yours.
Absolutely.
That's as simple as that. Like either you are happy with yourself and you literally you don't think anything in your life needs to change, which I don't know anybody, even people like me. I've got a list of 20 different things that I'd love to change in my life. But if you have to get in touch with the pain of your current existence. If there's no pain, there's no change.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, if you do the same thing and expect a different result, that is the definition of insanity. And it's, that's Einstein that said that. But I always think people don't realize that their choices it's their fault in a respect of, if they make the wrong choices, then they're going to have the outcomes they don't want.
Yeah. Let me switch that wording up a little bit. I think let's say it's their choice. It can't be your fault if you don't know. Now, if they're watching this, now they know, and it's your choice. Anything from this video on is now your fault.
Yes. I can give you a real world example of this. It's a bit off kilter. When I was a teenager, we was always looking for different places to go for a disco. All right, I'm 60, so I say disco. All right, and one of our friends said, let's do this boat trip on the Thames. It's got food and music and stuff like that. Anyway, we all went, big group of us, and it was atrocious. And one of the things that was funny was when the boat slowed down, so did the music. There was some sort of link between the engine and the music, and it was atrocious, and you couldn't do much, and it was cold and horrible. And I said to him, this is terrible. And he honestly said, yeah, it's always like this.
Why do you keep going back?
So I think that's what I get. I say to people when they are messaging me, I've fallen off the wagon, and I ask why. It's always pretty much the same thing. They fall into the same trap. So you just got to reframe everything and think differently. And I think your book is going to be really helpful for people to focus their mind on. If you could, one of the things I liked about the interview when I first met you was you're very good at breaking things down into like steps or points or, ways to approach things. And I think if you've got 5 sort of rungs on a ladder, just 5, it's going to get you to the top. And it's just really easy, manageable steps. So, Coach Bronson, thanks for coming on. Really, really appreciate your time.
Sure. Hey, I love being on here, man. Anytime you want to chat, just let me know.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Your support means the absolute world to me. And if you're enjoying this show, I've got a small favour to ask you. I'd be incredibly grateful if you would consider becoming a supporter and make a small monthly donation. Your contribution will really help to improve the show. I'll be able to improve the software, maybe put a few more episodes out, and do many things that I'm hoping to do in the future. Do them a lot quicker. So, it's a small monthly contribution. You can cancel at any time, and the link is in the show notes. Thanks very much for listening.